All right, today we're going to learn to organize data on different things. Line plots, frequency tables, and histograms. Things that you probably already know, but you just need to hear the right terminology in the right spots. Have this down, and then we'll move on. All right, so here is your warm-up. I want you to complete a bar graph. You know how to make bar graphs. Showing your favorite rides at the fair. Ferris wheel is 5, loop the loop is 4, merry-go-round is 3, bumper cars are 7, and the sit and spin ride is 9. Go ahead and make a table for that. So here's what your bar graph should sort of look like. The data going up shows how many favorite people have that as a favorite ride, and you have them all labeled at the bottom. Always make sure you put a title on your graphs and tables so you always know what it shows. All right, if you did something that looks really close to mine, then give yourself a pat on the back. You are already on your way to understanding line plots, frequency tables, and you'll find out that histograms aren't very far different from these bar graphs that you see here. All right, so let's talk about these two words and then put them in your notebook. So frequency of a data value is the number of times it occurs. So how frequent something happens. All a frequency table is it tells the number of times that event or category or group actually happens in a certain time period. So have these written down before moving on. All right, so let's say we're going to make a frequency table. We're going to do it using tally marks. So here's Mr. Ray's class, and they recorded their fingerprint patterns. Which type of pattern do most students in Mr. Ray's class have? So what we have here is raw data. Okay, it's just real quick, the kids wrote it down on the board probably. Some kids have a whirl pattern, some have a loop pattern, some people have an arch pattern. Well, to make this stuff easier to read, we're going to put it into a table. So we're going to make a frequency table first. This I want you to copy down. All right, so here's our info, and here's how you make a frequency table. All you got to do is first make a column for each fingerprint pattern. So we put a title, number of fingerprint patterns, and we put a column for whirls, arches, and loops. The second step then is for each one, put a tally mark. So we're basically going to go through the whole loop, and when you're done, you see a whirl here, so you put a tally mark here. You see loop here, so you put a tally mark here. You see whirl here, you go back and put another tally mark. And then this is the information that you'll have. Now from here, you can figure out which type of pattern do more students have in Mr. Ray's class. As you can see, it's pretty close. Whirl has 5, loop has 5, but the numbers don't lie. There are more arch students than whirl students or loop students, which is 6. So most students in Mr. Ray's class has an arch fingerprint. So that's how you make a frequency table. I want you to have this page down for sure in your notes so that you have a good example of a frequency table. All right, it's your time to organize and make a frequency table here of the data. Which instruments do the fewest students play? So make a frequency table and then tell me which one is the one that fewest students play. I'm going to check your answer on this when you come to show me your work after the quiz. If I don't see a table and you just wrote the answer, I'm going to make you go back and do the table. So do it right the first time so you don't have to do it twice. All right, let's talk about a line plot. I just like saying line plot because plot's a fun word to say. Go ahead and say it out loud. Plot. Plot. All right, let's move on. So a line plot uses a number of lines and little X's or some other symbol that you want to use that's going to show how frequent that value shows up. Oh, if I didn't say it already, put that in your notes. All right, so let's make a line plot. Here's what our final result is. Here's the info we have. So students collected tennis balls for a project. The number of balls collected by the students is recorded here on the table. Again, there's a title, so we know exactly what that table is showing us. So we're going to have to make a line plot. All right, so one kid collected 10 balls, another 14, another 11, and so on and so on. So the steps to make a line plot are pretty simple. First, draw a number line. Then for each tennis ball, use a little X, or you could make a tennis ball or something that stacks on top of itself. So in this table, we started at 5 and we went to 16. I probably would have even made it simpler and probably just started at 10 and went to 16. Don't need to have all this here, but I copied it from the book, so I just took what they had. So as you can see here, there was 1, 2, 3, 4 kids that found 10 balls. 1, 2, 3 kids that found 11 balls. 2 kids found 14 balls. 15 kids found 2 balls. Or 2 kids found 15 balls. I'm getting all confused now. And 16 balls were collected by 1 kid. So this shows you the data for the kids. Now, how you check to make sure you didn't miss any, count up the X's. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Make sure we accounted for each person. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. Have this down in your notebook before moving on. All right, so here is a list of the length of each U.S. presidency's years. So how long were they actually president? I want you to make a line plot of this data. So you're going to make your line plot in your notebook, and I'm going to check it when you bring your quiz over. Again, if you don't have it laid out properly the first time, I'm going to make you do it again. Your number line that you're going to use probably only has to go from 0, the lowest number, to 12. That's your range there that I can see. The lowest is 0 and 12. Some people had 0 years of presidency. That's crazy. They probably either got ill or they got assassinated. All right. So we've gotten through the first two pretty easy. Frequency tables, line plots, done. Now we're going to make a frequency table with intervals. Okay? So frequency tables with intervals. So here's the information we have. So it says we're going to use the data in the table to make a frequency table. All right, so pages read last weekend, probably by several students. One read 12, one read 5, one read 15, one read 22, and so on. Now, when you're making a frequency table like you see here, you could use tallies in this different range, but here we're going to actually just count them up. So the first step is to choose equal intervals. So what I decided here, or the book actually decided, so we're going to go by tens. 1 to 10. The next one you can't start at 10. You can't have numbers overlap, so the next number after 10 is 11. 11 to 20. 21 to 30. I know what I said. 31 to 40. So once you have your intervals written down here, then you just got to find the number of data values and see which frequency they fall in. So I go back up here and I'm going to count the frequencies that I see that are between 0 and 10. I see a 5 here. I see a 7 here. So that's 2 total. So you put a 2 down here. Now I'm going to look for any numbers that fall between 11 and 20. This one does. This one does. This one does. And this one does. So that's 4 numbers. So I put 4 there. 21 through 30. Let's see. I have a 22. That looks like it's it. So I put a 1 there. And 31 through 40, I see 1, 2, 3. So I put a 3 there. Now sometimes you'll have intervals that have 0 in them, and that's okay because you have to have consistent intervals. So this table shows that there's 2 students that read between 1 and 20, 4 students that read between 11 and 20, 1 student between this range, and 3 students between this range. This is what your final looks like. So again, have this down as a copy before moving on. All right, I want you to make a frequency table going back and using the information from our presidencies. So now make a frequency table that goes with this, just like that. So you're going to take those tallies you made, or that line plot you made, and you're basically going to put it into a frequency table for this problem. Again, I will check that when you bring your notes over to me to have your quiz checked and everything. All right, this is the last step. Now, example 4 goes right with example 3. You can display this information as a bar graph, basically, but we call it a histogram because it goes through ranges, not specific categories or numbers. So here we go. We're going to use this frequency table to make a histogram. Here's what you do. Step 1, you choose an appropriate scale. Okay. So for this example we're going to look at the number of pages read. So that was the one we used back here. And we see that we have 10, 1 to 10, 11 to 20, 21 through 30, and 31 through 40, and the highest we go to is 4. So in our table here, the highest we're going to go to is just a little above 4, which is 5. So the y-axis, you put 0 through 5. The x-axis, put your different categories. You'll see we have a title. We have titles on both sides to show what those numbers mean. And then you just make a bar graph for the heights. So if we go back, our spreads were 2, 4, 1, and 3. So this bar goes up to 2. This bar goes up to 4. This bar goes up to 1. This bar goes up to 3. One thing we had to make sure is we have the right numbers in the right spots. So as you can see, a histogram is just like a bar graph, just showing those ranges. All right, so this was my example. So you can probably guess that for your example, I want you to make a frequency use the frequency table in example 3. Again, that was the presidencies you made a frequency table of. And I want you to make a histogram for that. So I'll be checking all that work based on our presidential years. All right, so here is your box of thought. Describe a data set that can appropriately be displayed using a histogram. So what kind of data set would you display? Take a look at the examples we used. It should be pretty easy to figure this one out. All right, one more set of data you're going to have to do here for your quiz. So students listed the number of days they spent on vacation in 1 year. Here is the tallies. You're going to make You're going to make a tally table with intervals of 5, and then use your tally table from this problem to make a frequency table. That's it. Now, if you want to earn a 50 for this lesson, make a histogram for question number 3. You don't have to do 3 questions. You don't have to make a histogram, but if you do, and it looks right, I'll give you a 50. All right, we'll see you next time.